Welcome to Before the Day Ends. So for today, I just want to spend a little bit of time in the end of chapter 11. So where we're at, we're in the third book of Matthew, the first half of the third book, and we've talked about Jesus meeting opposition. Up to this point, he's been growing in popularity and performing works and wonders and miracles and teaching. And we saw last time that John the Baptist, his cousin, the greatest of all of us, Jesus says, he kind of doubts Jesus, but takes that doubt to Jesus. Now, in this same chapter, I come with a couple of verses that I think are often misrepresented or misinterpreted as far as what they might mean to us. And that's here at the very end of chapter 11, beginning in verse 28, where it says this, "Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Now, first off, the idea of yoke here was often associated with the Torah, God's instructions. So Jesus is saying, my instructions, my commandments for you are easy, my burden is light, which really, if you compare Jesus' new covenant with the old covenant, Jesus gets more to the heart of the matter, our intentions, not committing murder, but not being angry. It's this deeper view of the commandments. So in some ways, it's actually harder. But Jesus' yoke comes with his help. He sends his Spirit. He promises to be with us. That's kind of one major theme of Matthew is he is with us. So he is there to help us. So in that sense, it is lighter because he is helping us carry it. What I'm interested today, though, is this. When he says that I am gentle and humble in heart. And I think a lot of times people read this and they think, well, Jesus was kind of, just super nice, just is a really nice guy. Or things didn't bother him, or he was just so gentle, like, that good shepherd we see just sitting there and just watching his sheep. But we kind of forget that there's a side of Jesus that is going to bring judgment. A side of Jesus that was incredibly strong and powerful and courageous, right? He faces the Roman soldiers. He chooses death, and death on a cross for our sakes. When faced with the money changers in the temple, he chases them out. And so we want to take a look at this passage and see what does it mean for Jesus to be gentle and humble in heart, because it goes back to what we saw in Matthew 5, where it says, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." Well, the word used, gentle, here is the same word that is used in chapter 5, verse 5, for blessed are the meek. This word pros is often translated gentle, humble, meek in the Greek New Testament. However, when we hear the word meek, and sometimes even gentle, we think of words like docile or compliant, passive, lowly, weak, wishy-washy, spineless, milquetoast, timid. But that's not what this word pros means. Instead, the idea of humility in the ancient Near East was more about strength under control. So let's take a look at kind of some different places where we might run into this word and kind of give us maybe a bit more depth into what it means. So look at Psalm 37, verse 10. It says, "Yet a little while, and the wicked will be no more. Though you look diligently for their place, they will not be there. But the meek shall inherit the land and delight themselves in abundant prosperity." So, obviously, Matthew 5:5, "Blessed are the meek, for they inherit the earth," comes from Psalm 37, "But the meek shall inherit the land." So, in Greek, the word pros is used, translated meek. What's translated meek here in Hebrew? It gives us another word, another kind of part in the train to how thought was translated into different words and maybe what the thought behind those words actually meant. The Hebrew word is aneim. And it was used by rabbis in different places, and what it really meant was a wise person, a righteous person, a ruler who was good was considered to have aneim. So, for example, Moses was probably one of the best examples. In Numbers 12:3, it says this, "Now the man Moses was very humble, more so than anyone else on the face of the earth." That's the same word used here. Now think about that. Moses wasn't timid or weak or milquetoast or wishy-washy. Instead, Moses, this slave who was also escaped from Pharaoh, walks back into Pharaoh's court and confronts him face to face and demands on behalf of God that Pharaoh let his people go. Moses led the Israelites in the wilderness for 40 years. In the middle of a desert, he took care of them. So this word, anim, was a word of strength, of honor, of a good leader. So we see that in this word meekness then much more. In fact, Zechariah 9:9, also from the Old Testament, says this, "Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout aloud, O daughter Jerusalem. Lo, your king comes to you. Triumphant and victorious is he, humble and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey." Your king comes to you. How? Anim, humble. And he is triumphant, he is victorious, and he wasn't coming on a donkey because it was a lowly thing. He came because he was a king, and kings rode donkeys. And so this is a triumphant entry of a king after a victorious battle for his people. And in fact, you can probably remember here that Jesus uses this image when he enters Jerusalem for the final time. Matthew 21:5. "Tell the daughter of Zion, look, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey." So Matthew uses this text from Zechariah to say, here's this triumphant, powerful, victorious king who has wisdom coming into Jerusalem on a donkey. And the word in the Greek, which is, again, Matthew's written in Greek, is this praus word, which was used in Matthew 5:5 and then here in Matthew 11. So again, we have this idea that meekness and gentleness is not weakness. In fact, even in the ancient world, like Socrates, for example, said that meekness, humility, was a virtue of a true philosopher. So meekness was the opposite of brutality and anger. It's power and victory and courageousness and strength under control of wisdom to do the right things. Later in the New Testament, James 3, it says this, "Who is wise and understanding among you? Show by your good life that your works are done with gentleness." This is that same word, praus, born of wisdom. Everyday life is hard. We run into all kinds of challenges. And we are not just to roll over. We are to stand with strength and courage. At the same time, to do that with wisdom and humility. Like our strength comes from God alone. Our courage comes from Christ alone. And so forth. But with that courage and strength, we can stand against evil. We can stand against those who would hurt others. We would stand against those who would lie and deceive. And we stand in strength, but with humility. A strength under control is controlled by wisdom and righteousness. We don't go for revenge or vengeance. Why? Because God is the one who brings revenge and vengeance, and He's much better at it than we are. But at the same time, we are not to just sit aside and not be involved and to be timid and meek and weak. We are not those things. We are to be strong and courageous and victorious because we serve a God who is strong, courageous, and victorious. And so, when Jesus says, "I am gentle and humble in heart," that means we have one who is strong enough and powerful enough and courageous enough for us to lean on and to follow. We have a victorious king. Jesus was not weak. He is a king and the ruler of the universe and will be and is today victorious. And therefore we should have courage and we should have strength to live in the freedom that we have in Christ to face the world without fear, without the idea that we're going to have to give up or give in. We don't. We follow the one who is victorious. And we see that in the end of his life. Jesus is in the garden, and he doesn't want to face this. He says, take this cup from me, but Lord, your will be done because you're victorious. And with strength and courage, he goes to face the cross. And he is arrested. And at one point, Peter tries to stop this from happening. What does Jesus say? He says, do you think I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send more than 12 legions of angels? I want to say this again to you. Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all you that are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. He is gentle and humble. Strength, courage, freedom, honor, under the control of wisdom. We follow him in these things. And we find rest for our souls because he walks with us. He leads us and helps us carry our yoke and our burdens so that we can face the evil in this world with his strength and his courage, because we know we follow the one who is victorious and yet shows such great wisdom in dealing with the world, in dealing with us, and is humble in heart, so that we really can find rest. Hope you have a great week before the day ends.